Hello, and welcome to the December 7th, 2022 meeting of the Oak Grove Community Council. My name is Joseph Edge. I'm the chair, and I will be facilitating the meeting tonight. Tonight we have an update from Clackamas County Housing Services and some of our usual business. So we'll just get right into that. First off is introductions. So I'll stop sharing for just a moment so that we can see each other. As we do introductions, please say your name and the name of the street that your first and last name and the name of the street that you live on. And then when you're done speaking, please mute your microphone for the rest of the meeting unless you have the floor. So first off, I'm Joseph Edge. I'm the chair, and I live in the River Forest neighborhood. Valerie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Valerie Chapman. I'm the vice chair, and I live on Evergreen Street, just a block away from the trolley trail.
Thank you. Mark, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Mark Elliott, and I live off of Concord Road, west of McLaughlin.
Thank you. Rich?
Hi, Rich Nippon. I'm a general board member, and I live 3 blocks south of the Fred Meyers Oak Grove on the east side of McLaughlin.
Thank you. And Jane?
Jane Civiletti. I live on Fair Oaks Avenue. I'm the treasurer.
Thanks, Jane. So those were our board members, and now I'll go through the rest of the attendees. I will call you by the name that is shown in the list on Zoom. So first off, it'll be Sue Conahan.
Sue Conahan. I live on Parkview Circle.
Thanks, Sue. Tom Hammond.
Tom and Jolene Hammond. We live on Viewcrest Drive.
Thank you. Brian's iPad.
Hello, I'm Brian Goodrich with Clackamas Fire District, and I'm at the Oak Grove Fire Station.
Thanks and welcome, Brian. Christina Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Chris Hamilton. I live on Boardman Avenue.
Thank you. Dave Doback.
Dave Doback. I live at Rose Villa.
Thank you. Eleanor Hunter.
Hey, I'm Eleanor Hunter. I live on Laurie Avenue, just south of Oak Grove Boulevard.
Eleanor. Green. Green, could you unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Hello, is that me you called?
There you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I'm Gwen. I live on Evergreen Street and the same house as Valerie.
Thank you. Heidi Bullock, could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, yes. Good evening. Sorry, I'm bouncing between meetings. Heidi Bullock. I live in Jennings Lodge, but I am a board member of the Oak Lodge Water Services. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
For sure.
Pam Horan.
I'm Pam Horan. I live at Rose Villa.
Thank you and welcome, Pam. Suzanne Wolf.
Yes, good evening. My name is Suzanne Wolf, and I live on East Avenue.
Thank you. Tom Civiletti.
Tom Civiletti. I live on Fair Oaks Ave at Oak Grove Boulevard.
Thank you. Tom Hogan.
Tom Hogan. We live on Oatfield Road between Thiessen and Concord.
Thank you and welcome. Vahid Brown.
Good evening, I'm Vahid Brown. I'm the Housing Services Manager for Clackamas County.
Thank you and welcome. Vahid is our presenter this evening. And let's see, I think Baldwin, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sorry, I'm still hooking up.
We know who you are. We'll get you logged in. Thanks, Baldwin. So I think that's everybody. If you have not been called on for attendance, please make sure that you chat Jane Soletti and let her know so that she can record that you are here. So we'll take care of a little bit of business first, and let's see. We have our officer reports. Our secretary is not here this evening, but we did distribute minutes with the meeting announcements. Are there any corrections to the minutes that we should record? Hearing none and seeing no hands, we will record those as official as distributed. So thanks, everybody. And then just a reminder that our next board election is our February meeting, our regular February meeting on February 22nd, 2023. The board is open to voting members for both the election and for running for office. So if you are interested in serving on the board, please send an email to contact@oakgrovecpo.org, and we'll make sure that you're included. Oops. And then just one more update on, I'm sorry, this is jumping around on me. Voting member status for 2023. We are, we do have our bylaws that say that you need to attend 2 meetings per year in order to retain your voting status. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows that this is the last meeting of the year. And so if you need to request a waiver to the requirement for retaining your voting status for next year, please send an email to, again, contact@oakgrovecpo.org and let us know that you need a waiver. So thank you for that. And then, Jane, do you have a treasury update?
The treasury update is no update. Our money in was nothing and the bank balance remains the same at $1,636.19. No bills, no incoming money. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to briefly mention how contributions can be made?
I will certainly mention that again. Anyone who would like to donate any funds at all, holiday giving to the Oak Grove Community Council can do so at any On Point Community Bank. You would just go up to a teller and say you wanted to transfer some funds from your account or hand them a dollar bill, and they will have all the information for our group.
Awesome. Thank you, Jane. So up next, we'll turn it right over to our main presentation. So this is Vahid Brown, and Vahid, please take it away.
Thank you, Joseph. Good evening, everyone. Valerie invited me to provide a presentation about shelter and safety off the streets and different types of those kinds of programs. So that's the presentation I prepared, but if there's other topics y'all were interested in, I can save some time for that as well. Can I share screen, Joseph? All right, I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. So let's see, where is that? There we go. So I think when I was talking with Valerie about this presentation and what would be of interest to the community council, she mentioned specifically that, residents in Clackamas County, including y'all, are hearing about different efforts the county is involved in to provide new or expanded programs for folks experiencing homelessness that provide safety off the streets. There's different types that get discussed, different kinds of opportunities that we engage the community about. So this presentation is meant to give some context about the different models of safety off the streets for people experiencing homelessness that the county has been discussing, exploring, and that you may hear about in the future that the county is exploring funding or moving into one or more of these models, and I'll talk about some of them specifically. So safety off the street is the general kind of overarching category for all of these different models of programming that I'm going to describe. And they are meant to literally do that, to provide a safe place for people who are experiencing homelessness so that they're not exposed to the elements. They're able to access services in a way that supports their health and their dignity, and meets our objective in the county as a stated goal of the Board of Commissioners, which is to work towards getting to a place where homelessness in Clackamas County is rare, it's brief, and it's not recurring. And so having the opportunity for people who are suddenly homeless or who have been homeless for a long time to get off of the streets and into a safe place is a key component of that response effort, that response system that will allow us to achieve that goal. So overall, safety off the streets is a shelter or crisis housing. This is a safe place to stay temporarily, to meet basic needs and hygiene needs, to connect people during that temporary stay to permanent housing, to long-term solutions to end their homelessness. Best practices for, go ahead, Joseph.
Sorry to interrupt, Fahid. It doesn't look like you're advancing through your presentation.
Did you not, are we not off the title slide?
No, it still appears that we're on the title slide.
Okay, let's see. Let me try that again. So now do you see a second slide with a picture on the right? No?
No, we're still seeing the title slide with the index of slides on the left side.
How about now? No, this is very strange.
No, it hasn't changed.
Okay. Stop sharing and try one other thing here. 1 second. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I can talk about these things without slides if necessary, but I prefer not to do that because that's not as much fun.
We're still seeing the title slide.
And I've advanced the slide. Still no change.
There we go. All
right.
Yeah, that's working.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. If at first it doesn't work, try it 3 more times. All right. So I've already spoken to this slide. That's the picture. There's an aerial view of a transitional shelter village, and I'll talk about that model. So I'm going to talk about broadly these 5 categories of safety off the streets programs that we either currently provide in Clackamas County or have discussed with our board and staff and with the community as potential opportunities for expansion to continue to provide additional services for people. Different models are important because folks experience homelessness for lots of different reasons. They come to us with lots of different challenges, and not one type will work for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And so it's important to have a variety of different models to be able to meet people's different needs with respect to their experience and the traumas they might have and the different barriers they're experiencing to becoming housed. So safe rest areas, safe parking sites, transitional villages, facility-based congregate shelter, where folks are sheltered in a congregate way, they're all together, or maybe they're on bunks or mats on the floor, and non-congregate, when folks are not in it all together, but have a separate private sleeping quarters. Those are the models I'm going to talk through real briefly. Safe rest areas. We do not have a safe rest area in Clackamas County, but these are a model that exists in our region, in the state, in Portland, Eugene, there's a lot of these on the West Coast in California, Washington State. These are designated areas. You might have heard of them as sanctioned camping sites. So where people can stay for short-term periods while camping in a tent. They might set up a tent on a platform. There might be Conestoga huts, like in the picture on the lower right. That's a rest stop in Eugene. They provide basic amenities. There might be food, garbage service, some hygiene services like a mobile shower or something like this. Participants can stay 24/7. They don't need to leave in the morning, so to speak. There might be an on-site service provider or peer support provider. And this model typically serves only adult-only households. So it's not a model that's a best practice for families experiencing homelessness, for unaccompanied youth experiencing homelessness, or for survivors of domestic violence who are experiencing homelessness because they are fleeing domestic violence. Safe parking sites, very similar to safe rest areas, except instead of tents or Conestoga huts, these are designated areas for folks who are living in a vehicle. They might be living in their car or in an RV. There are some safe parking sites in our region. There's a couple in Vancouver. There's an overnight parking program in Eugene. These range in size and approach. We've attempted to do one of these in Clackamas County a couple of years ago. We had a permit program for properties to apply for and to host people living in their vehicles for a short period of time. King of Kings Church applied for that. There was quite a bit of community opposition, and that program did not go forward. Similar in the amenities they provide to a safe rest area, similar in that they are most suited to adult-only households, sometimes some families with children, but not suitable for unaccompanied youth. Transitional villages. We do have a transitional village in Clackamas County, the Clackamas County Veterans Village. Another example here is Dignity Village. There are a number of transitional villages in the city of Portland. Kenton Women's Village. There's quite a few. So these are a little bit of step up. So I'm kind of going through this continuum from the most basic, sort of simple and low cost, you might say, to more models with more amenities and sometimes with higher costs associated. So transitional villages will have their own kind of structures, tiny houses or pods or sleeping pods. Sometimes they're electrified and plumbed, sometimes not. Typically not in the Northwest. We don't see plumbing in these small structures. They're managed by peers. So there's a self-governing or a sort of participant involvement component of these models, but there's also often a nonprofit service provider on site. With the Clackamas County Veterans Village, we have Do Good Multnomah on site providing case management services. Everything is kind of provided on site, including common areas. This model also typically serves adult-only households because of the fact that the sleeping units are not plumbed or electrified. It's not really suitable for families with children or unaccompanied youth. Facility-based congregate shelter is kind of your platonic ideal or whatever. When we think about shelter, this is sort of what might come to mind. Something like the Portland Rescue Mission downtown, a program with a large area for people to shelter off of the streets, sometimes just overnight and not during the day, in kind of dormitory bunk bed situations or a situation where there's simply sleeping mats on the ground. Again, some limited amenities might be, the on-site restrooms and sometimes shower facilities, some food available, on-site staff or volunteers. The congregate shelter was something that, all over the country, homeless service response systems kind of had to move away from because they were not conducive to COVID. So there's no way in a congregate shelter setting to really limit the transmission of a respiratory virus like COVID-19. So Clackamas County and our neighbors, we all moved away from congregate shelter during the pandemic and moved to non-congregate models. We've learned a lot about the benefits of non-congregate models, so we're continuing those locally, even though there's less of a risk posed to folks because of COVID-19. Our warming shelter response, like the Father's Heart Street Ministry, which operates a warming shelter in Oregon City, Malala Hope, which operates one in Malala, Zor Lutheran in Canby. Our warming shelters are typically congregate. So it's a large room. In the case of Zor, it's a large part of the church that's open to people on really cold nights, and there's sleeping mats or cots on the ground. These will serve pretty much the general population of people experiencing homelessness. Anyone can be served in a program model like this. Facility-based non-congregate shelter. The primary modality of this this model in the Northwest and in many parts of the country during COVID was utilizing motels, because hotels and motels were really suffering. They were not getting a lot of business during COVID. Travel and tourism kind of disappeared. So these were often empty buildings. And so Clackamas County and many other local jurisdictions partnered with these empty hotels to stand in for our shelter needs in a non-congregate way. And we were able to provide safety off the streets to people without putting them at risk of COVID. They have significant benefits vis-a-vis the other models. There's privacy. So if you're in your own room, you have privacy. One of the challenges that shelter operations face is that in a congregate setting, there might be a lot of noise. Again, of course, there's the risk of the transmission of infectious diseases, which is why we moved away from them during COVID. But flu and tuberculosis, other kinds of things are a challenge to congregate shelter. People might not feel safe. They might feel that there's going to be a lot of people in this place, and some of them are going to be in a behavioral health crisis, or someone's going to be shouting in the middle of the night. I'm set my phone to charge on the wall and I got to go to the bathroom. And if I come back, is it going to be gone? So people, when we have a lot of good survey data in our region about how people experiencing homelessness express their preferences for what kind of safety off the streets programming meets their needs. By far, the most popular form of shelter that people identify is non-congregate facility-based shelter, specifically motel shelter. One of our family shelters, Northwest Housing Alternatives, operated a congregate family shelter in Milwaukee for many years called Annie Ross House, which has 8 rooms in a large building on their campus in Milwaukee by the high school. During COVID, they moved to a motel model, and because of the risks of COVID transmission in Annie Ross House. And they found that their participants were quite, they favored that model so much, and they identified privacy, that they didn't feel like they were in a program, that their family autonomy and dignity was kind of given greater recognition in a hotel room, because all of us are familiar with being in a hotel room, but it can be a very traumatic or challenging environment for children to be in a shelter environment. So for those and other reasons, Northwest Housing Alternatives never returned to the Annie Ross House model. They continue to now operate their family shelter program through motels. The county also stood up a COVID response motel shelter program during COVID using ARPA dollars and FEMA dollars. We are continuing that program. We currently contract with 2 hotels in the Clackamas County, the Econo Lodge on McLaughlin and the Clackamas Inn and Suites in North Clackamas, to continue to provide non-congregate shelter to people experiencing homelessness in this model. We have on-site case management staff in these hotels that work directly with the families and the individuals in the motel rooms to connect them to permanent housing. This model can serve everyone in any population of people experiencing homelessness, youth, people fleeing domestic violence. Clackamas Women's Services operates domestic violence shelter in area motels. So this is kind of basically the non-congregate shelter model. Some examples of these, mentioned the Annie Ross House, the transitional housing program operated by the Lake Oswego Transitional Shelter Ministry. These are individual family rooms in 4 participating churches that are kind of rooms that are converted into small apartments. The Project Turnkey, which has had 2 rounds of state funding in Oregon for local jurisdictions to purchase hotels to convert them to this use permanently. There's a lot of examples of those. I think there's 19 motel programs that have been funded in the first round of Turnkey around the state, including some examples here, one in McMinnville and one in Medford. And I'll say a little bit more about Turnkey in a second, which is right now. We applied for Project Turnkey funding. Clackamas County did in round 1 when they first issued the state first funded this program. We were awarded a phase 2 award, so we were cleared to move forward at that time to identify a property to purchase. We were not successful in that round, and in purchasing a motel property. We applied again in turnkey 2.0 when the state reissued another series of grant awards, $50 million from the state to hopefully fund 10 successful projects. Clackamas County again moved to phase 2. We've been working for several months to identify a hotel. We've done a lot of community engagement in the county around this project. Tomorrow night, I will be talking with the Board of County Commissioners about the opportunity to enter into a purchase and sale agreement on a property pursuant to a turnkey award. So there's an opportunity here that we may be purchasing a hotel in the very near future, as soon as tomorrow, in a sense. Once that would just be the beginning. If we got into a purchase and sale agreement, then we would need to do the due diligence, make sure the building is in good order and so forth. But we are pursuing an opportunity to make this a permanent feature of our continuum of homelessness response. That's my brief presentation on our kind of shelter models. I've included some information here. Questions about our programming. Housing services is an email address that my whole team sees and responds to. Someone experiencing homelessness or in a housing crisis, we have one point of contact to get assessed for folks' needs and connected with the appropriate services. That's the Coordinated Housing Access. There's an email there, a phone number. It's also on our website. Also listed the contact information here for the Housing Authority, where we end our website for updates on Project Turnkey. I'll share this presentation with Valerie or Joseph. I know I've been corresponding with Valerie in the last few weeks, so this can be shared out to the council. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and see if you have any questions.
Well, thanks, Fahid. Yeah, well, let's take questions. Valerie, I see that you raised your hand right away.
Yeah, I have a question that I'm hoping you can answer. I know that in round 1 of Project Turnkey, there was some look at a facility, and there was some, there was members of the community that didn't feel positive towards that. But one of the things that I've heard in talking with people a couple of times is that they didn't think it was appropriate because there's no place for people to have jobs around there. So I was wondering if you might address the issue of transitional housing and its purpose in relationship to getting a person a job.
Yeah, that's a cool question. Thanks, Valerie. When we're providing transitional housing to a household, so they've left homelessness. We're in our transitional housing motel-based programs like at Econo Lodge and Comfort, and potentially in the near future at a turnkey purchased motel. The whole array of barriers and challenges that contribute to that household's homelessness are part of the work being done by on-site staff. And if folks are in a place where getting back into the workforce, regaining income is high on the list of things that need to be addressed now, then staff will definitely work with that household in a transitional housing program to find employment. Many folks in our transitional housing programs, that's not high on their list at this moment. We prioritize placement in these programs. They're scarce with respect to the need, right? There's many hundreds of people experiencing homelessness, and there's 50 rooms of transitional housing in our motel program. So the households that we are placing in these programs are highly vulnerable households. So we are prioritizing folks by vulnerability. And that often means that employment is maybe not ever going to be on the menu for some of these households. These are folks that may be very old, they're disabled. They're households with in many cases, really severe barriers and challenges. Some of them have been homeless for decades. And in many cases, if we're prioritizing people by vulnerability, all of them will have been homeless for a significant period of time. And so, re-entering the workforce and addressing their income challenges is a part of the long-term plan and case management plan that our staff engage with households on. But for a very elderly disabled person experiencing homelessness who is on Social Security disability income, they aren't going to re-enter the workforce. And so our solution to their homelessness after we've kind of stabilized them in a transitional housing program is to connect them with permanent housing, in which we will often support their rent with a voucher, with rent assistance, and provide ongoing case management supportive services to help them be successful in their new home. But for other households, yeah, that is something that can be accomplished while they're in the transitional program, is re-entering the workforce. So it all depends on kind of the barriers and challenges that people come to transitional housing with. But if someone just recently lost their housing because of a disaster, like the battery died in the car and you couldn't make it to work, it was the third time you called out, you got fired, oh my gosh, rent's due, I didn't get paid, got an eviction notice. So there's a lot of households who are in this kind of experience where it's a recent kind of things piled up and you missed the rent and you got an eviction. Transitional housing may not be the best and most effective intervention for that household. What we would do then is a rapid rehousing thing, where we would immediately help them get back into housing, assist them with rent for maybe a month or two, up to several months. And really, it's not about a need for very long-term intensive support. It's just some bad stuff happened and bad luck, and getting back into the workforce is really, yeah, that's the top of the list. That's the next thing to do. Does that answer your question, Valerie?
Yes, I just think it's important to help us all understand what transitional housing, what the focus is there, and that getting people job ready is a ways down the road. And so the fact that it might not be near employment opportunities does not make it a bad place for transitional housing. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Fahid. Cole Merkel, I think from Here Together Coalition, spoke to our group here about a month and a half or so ago. And he mentioned there were 2 projects that were being considered as far as purchases of motels that are currently being used by the county at market prices. So has that been reduced down to now 1 property? I'm just curious what might be in the works as far as purchase of these motels that Cole had mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, we have been in negotiations with several properties, and where we are at now is we have the ability to propose to the board to enter into a purchase and sale agreement for 1. So we were not foreclosing other opportunities and kind of maintaining a active negotiation with several properties. Less successfully in some cases, more successfully in others with respect to that negotiation. And I think we're in a good place with 1 property now to move forward and present that opportunity to the board tomorrow night.
So is that money from the state still available in the future to purchase additional properties?
Well, this would be a one-time award, this project turnkey award. So with our application and being successful thus far with this round of turnkey, no. I think that if we secure a property with that turnkey grant and the Oregon Community Foundation kind of fully approves the selection and we move forward, there isn't additional funding in this round of turnkey available to us to purchase an additional site. There may be other opportunities in the future through turnkey. It's been very successful. And I know that Oregon Housing and Community Services in their most recent proposed budget for 2023 includes ongoing turnkey appropriations from the state. So that is something that OHCS is presenting to the governor-elect and the legislature in 23.
So do you expect that the county will be trying to achieve future funding through this program?
Potentially, yes, I think so. I mean, we have our infrastructure to provide safety off the streets is currently inadequate. it is not enough. We have too few rooms and beds for people experiencing homelessness, and we need more. And so if there were a future opportunity to apply for turnkey, I would anticipate that the county would pursue that opportunity.
All right, thank you.
Jane?
Yes, Fahid, I wondered if you can give us any other information about Annie Ross House. It's been something that's been a unit here in our community for decades, and I think some of us would be interested to hear just how they're functioning now, if they've transitioned some of the use of the Annie Ross House itself.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. So as I mentioned, Northwest Housing Alternatives continues to operate a family shelter program, and my department is funding that through supportive housing services dollars. We just executed a contract with NHA recently. They receive other funding as well, but and it is currently exclusively with a motel-based program. The Annie Ross House building on the NHA campus in Milwaukee, we awarded funding and are working on the final contract negotiations with another agency, a culturally specific agency that has a specific focus on people that identify as Native American or Indigenous, to provide a new family shelter program with a specific focus on Indigenous Native American folks at that facility. So that is the future intent of our partnership with another agency, in partnership with NHA as well. The NHA would provide the good offices of that building, Annie Ross House, and we would enter into a contract with another agency, to provide a family shelter program there.
Thank you.
Valerie, did you have another question?
Yeah, just curiosity. So the facility that you're working on through the project with Project Turnkey, how big is it? I mean, how many rooms in the facility that you're looking at? So that's one question. The other question I have is kind of in a different realm. I realized this summer I spent a lot of time walking on the trolley trail and connecting with people who are without permanent shelter, who are on the trolley trail, and getting to know some people. And one of the things that became really clear is that, if you're looking for a shower and you try to go, where's a public shower? There's nothing between Portland and Oregon City that's listed anywhere so if you're trying to help people. And then, when it was really smoky and they offered places for people to get out of the smoke when it was hazardous there for a while, same thing, nothing between Portland and Oregon City. And Oak Grove is in that in between place, and I wonder if you have any ideas about how we might establish or have something that would be helpful, because those are long distances to travel.
Yeah, and excuse me. So on the showers, I understand that Love One does hold some mobile shower events in Milwaukee as well. So they offer. I don't know if you're familiar with Love One, but they're a nonprofit, a really fantastic group. They started in Milwaukee several years ago. And they have a mobile shower and free laundry event that's sort of a pop-up event that happens at a laundromat in Oregon City, at one on 99, at one in Milwaukee. They're working on expanding into Sandy. So I think if there's a specific kind of opportunity for partnership with a property or something in Oak Grove, Love One would be a great partner to reach out to. We are also funding Love One to expand their programming. As to your first question, the size of the property that we're looking at for this turnkey opportunity that we'll be discussing with the board tomorrow, our paperwork on that conversation with the board is online. So if you go to the Board of County Commissioners site on the Clackamas County website, you'll see that tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. we will be discussing in a business meeting the opportunity for the board to enter into a purchase and sale agreement on a property, and it's identified there. That property has 110 rooms.
Great.
Eleanor?
Yeah, hi. I'm interested to know, there's a perception, at least I have the perception, and I believe that others may as well, that Clackamas County sort of doesn't want to have homeless shelters and things like that, because if we don't have them, then those people will go away. They'll go back. It's a Portland problem, and we don't have that problem here. So I love the idea of Project Turnkey and these other things. I'm wondering, is there any kind of requirement on the county that it provides a certain number of rooms or shelters or things like that? Is it just up to the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners, or are there other like state or federal, requirements that you need to have a certain number of units or homes or places?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Eleanor. There is not any such requirement that the county, that the jurisdiction provide a certain number of rooms. There is a requirement related to federal court, some recent federal court decisions, that if a jurisdiction wishes to criminalize homelessness in any way, or penalize people for being homeless through fines, citations, or arrest, then it cannot do so unless there is sufficient shelter for everyone who is experiencing homelessness. So there's only a requirement for adequate shelter if a jurisdiction is criminalizing homelessness. I'd also say that it isn't solely at the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners as to how much shelter there might be in Clackamas County. State legislation in the last couple of years, I think it was HB 2001 or 2006. I'd have to look. There's a lot of House bills that I lose track of, that moved, this legislation prohibited local jurisdictions from blocking the siting of shelter pretty much at all. So if we want shelter 501c3 were to come together in Oak Grove, and it was operated out of an Oak Grove church, and they said, we're going to turn the building on our property into shelter, that legislation says that the county cannot prohibit that, that as long as that program meets basic life safety like criteria, that the building is safe, that the operations of it would not pose any health risks to the participants, then it can do so. And it doesn't have to ask permission. It doesn't need a special permit. It doesn't have to get a conditional use with respect to, well, this is zoned for that, or this is zoned for this. So the state legislation says, no, the need for shelter is so great in the state that if someone steps forward and says, we're going to operate shelter, the bar is it safe? Not, will we allow it? The state said you cannot disallow it. So that's another point there. I think that with respect to the perception that you identified, Eleanor, yes, I've heard that from residents, right, in Clackamas County, that we don't want that kind of thing here because if you build it, they will come. Couple of things there. One, we know that the magnet myth is a myth, that people experiencing homelessness in Clackamas County are from here. Overwhelmingly, we have a lot of data. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact. And so that's a part of it. This is true. I mean, you can Google magnet myth homelessness, and you'll find studies all over the country. So people in Chattanooga think that. People in San Diego believe that. Everyone thinks that the homeless in their community come from somewhere else because of something that we're doing locally, and that isn't the case. People who are here living in their cars, the last time they had housing was here. Overwhelmingly, of course, there are some that move here, but the overwhelming majority are from here. The other thing is that our board is not of that opinion, right? So today I spoke with the Board of County Commissioners, presented 4 large opportunities, including turnkey, to really increase our safety off the streets capacity. And the board unanimously voted to approve us to continue to move forward to do that.
It's that idea that for King of Kings, I know the
Yeah.
idea of having the safe parking place was squashed by basically by neighborhood concerns. And so it sounds as if that pressure point has been removed from the possibility of having projects go forward. So
That's
in
correct.
the meantime, legislation is sort of caught up with the system that's been being worked. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Fahid. It's lovely to hear this presentation and get a much rounder, fuller understanding. Thank you. It helps in having conversations with neighbors and other people to help contextualize and humanize the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eleanor.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Well, I don't know how quick it is. It's always quick for me, but the question I have is from the Housing Affordability and Houselessness Task Force from a few years ago, which I know you were involved with, Fahid. There were several recommendations that came out of that, and many of those have been, are slated for implementation by the Planning and Zoning Division. And so far, they've made it through their Housing Strategies Phase 1 and their Housing Strategies Phase 2 projects, but there's still Housing Strategies Phase 3 coming up. And so, and that's where I think we find the zoning changes that are most pertinent to the material that you've been presenting tonight. And so I was wondering if you might be able to speak a little bit to what is forthcoming in that next package, since you were involved in the group that formed those recommendations.
Yeah, I will have to get back to you on that, Joseph. The Housing Strategies Phase 3 that the Department of Transportation and Development is moving forward. Once we kind of wrapped the task force and we developed those recommendations, Transportation and Development kind of move those forward within their body of work. So what's next in terms of those zoning considerations on Phase 3, I'm not intimately familiar with. So I will have to get that information from Jennifer Hughes.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for that. So let's see, are there any other questions for Vahid before we let him go? Valerie?
Yeah, I'm full of questions. I'm sorry. And I'm going to go back to, my experience and working with folks that are outdoors that drift along by the trolley trail, which is, there's a transportation corridor there that people move on. And my experience that there's nothing in the corridor. I mean, we talk about things about moving people, whether it's Sandy or Estacada or Oregon City or by 82nd Avenue or wherever, but it's always away from where I actually see people. And I am, I guess I feel sometimes really frustrated because I can't help people connect very easily because there isn't anything. And then when they have shelters, the same thing happens. They'll ask for people that want a shelter, even to be a volunteer at a shelter. And it is out east or it's far, it's way down south. And I'm like, and yet we have a lot of people who live and move in this area down what I would call the transportation corridor, because that's how people move around. And sometimes it does feel a little bit like what Eleanor was talking about. It's like, well, we don't want anything where this community is, we just want them away from here. And yet, human beings walk and move and they go where things are. So that's difficult to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges in this part of the continuum, this part of our response, that's sort of the emergency crisis response, that we need to provide opportunities for folks to be safe and not exposed to the elements. That's often the most frightening kind of programming for our neighbors, for our house neighbors to contemplate. And so it's this kind of conversation and the opportunity that you give me here tonight to share what we're working on that really helps. You know, on the 21st of December in Oregon City, and I'll share a flyer, Valerie, you can share out to the council. You know, we'll be holding the first time in Clackamas County, we'll be observing the longest night, the National Memorial Day of remembrance for people who died while experiencing homelessness. This is a thing that's been observed nationally for 32 years. I've been participating in longest night commemorations and vigils in Portland for many years. And for the first time in Clackamas County, we'll be holding one of these events here. And we'll be remembering, you know, 13 people who have died in Clackamas County that have been identified by the state from January to September. I'm aware of many more than that passed away in the last year while experiencing homelessness. 2 in the last month. 54-year-old man 2 weeks ago passed away at a bus shelter at the Clackamas Community College. A few days after that, someone who's been experiencing homelessness in Oregon City for many years died after an illness. These are our neighbors, and they're dying outside. So it's important that we grapple with that we understand that shelter and safety off the streets is a critical health and life safety response to people in our community who, for no fault of their own, or however you want to conceive of the fault or the moral failing, not being able to pay your rent is why people are homeless. Not being able to afford housing is the number one reason people are experiencing homelessness. So anyway, it's kind of a tangent, but I hear you, Valerie, and we need to be able to provide this kind of program where it makes sense to do so, and where people are in their own community. You know, they're in their neighborhood. They're not on a barge or on a, you know, in a satellite in space. You know, I often hear, and I have for 10 years, and I know that you're familiar with this too, Valerie. I love that idea. That's a great solution. I just don't think it should be here. And where else is there, right? There. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. But I will share the flyer for the longest night so that I hope you all can join us.
I think there's a fear that homelessness could be contagious, right? It's like, if it's near me, then maybe, and I can't allow myself to believe that I could ever have to endure such a thing. So make it go away, because it's just too scary to think that it's that close and that possible.
Yeah.
If it were more visible, then we would be more often confronted with our poor housing policies. People don't like to hear that either.
Well, if people walk the trolley trail, if they walk through the park behind the sewer treatment plant, wherever in Milwaukee, if you walk there and you pay attention and you say hello to people, you will discover lots of neighbors who are walking and moving through there that are not housed. And I think that's always my sadness, is that people are right out here in sleeping in exposed areas. And you're right. It's good if we move them away from this area, but we don't have anything where people actually are right now. So, and I think I'm really, I always think, you know, Milwaukee did a really wonderful thing by providing a restroom that's open, that's down by Milwaukee Bay Park. And I am just completely flummoxed about why we could not get a restroom, a public one, by the Max line, the end of the Max line. I mean, there is one, it just happens to be under the trees that are by somebody's backyard behind where the service entrance for the Max employees. And if you walk a lot, you will encounter people there because it's sort of hidden, I guess. But I mean, if we don't take care of people, then we have these other issues that we're going to deal with anyway. So it seems like more humane to start in a good place. I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Vahid. I really appreciate your time tonight. This was really informative, and we're always glad to have you here and look forward to having you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, y'all.
So I am going to actually, let's see really quick. Brian Goodrich, are you still here? Did you have an update from the fire department that you wanted to share with us tonight?
I do. Real quick, I know the meeting last month was over Thanksgiving, so is it usually a bi-monthly meeting or is it monthly?
We meet every month except for November and December when we have a combined meeting the first week of December.
Okay, great. So real quick, I'll just cover November and December real quick from the fire district, just for a little information on what happened with your fire department in those 2 months. In November, we ran on 2,432 calls for service. This was an increase in number of calls from the previous years, mainly in EMS, medical problems. November, there was a safety message that focused on cooking safety. And really, it was kind of a preparation for Thanksgiving. And hopefully everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Also, for both November and December, we're really trying to get information out that we're looking at doing a local option levy for May 2023. It would fund firefighting positions and improve emergency and wildfire response. All community members are invited to attend meetings. There's been a few meetings that have already occurred in the month of November. There's another meeting coming up January 4th in Oregon City on 7th Street at Fire Station 15. All meetings begin at 6 p.m. and can be attended either in person or viewed online. There's information on our website. Currently, backyard burning season is open. That really doesn't affect the Oak Grove area, but the DEQ burn boundary is basically about 92nd south and east of that area to the Clackamas River, and then south of Oregon City. And then also we've started our Operation Santa program, which is where we collect food donations and toys for the needy in Clackamas County. And I believe I guess I'll ad lib here a little bit. The Operation Santa has changed just a little bit, and that the parades are going through kind of general areas and not neighborhood to neighborhood. In years past, they used to go from fire stations, response areas, and pretty much kind of do about 12 parades. Now they've shortened it down to, I think, 3 or 4 parades, just to show everyone in the public that we're doing a toy drive and a food donation drive. And so those will have donation sites that are kind of advertised through that. And those are underway right now. And then lastly, that backyard burning season will end December 15th. So the smoky conditions will kind of lift in the valley if you've experienced any of that. And the last parade, it looks like, will be December 12th. This will include donation drop-off sites, which those donation drop-off sites are available on our website at clackamasfire.com. And so that was the talking points that the fire district asked me to speak on with your group. But I know last time we spoke, a question was asked about the availability of the community room at the fire station. I'm happy to report that that room will be available again. I just don't know the ETA of the availability. It's going through a little bit of a remodel. It'll probably look the same, but there's been a little changes to that area. It was used as office spaces. And so as soon as the desks are cleared out of that room and we can get tables and chairs back in there, I will contact your group and let you know that it is available for in-person meetings again.
Awesome, thank you. That's great to hear.
And then
do we have, oh, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to ask the same thing. Any questions for Brian before we let him go? Valerie, go for it.
Question, is it possible for people to have like solo stove burning or whatnot in this area right now?
Yes. And so if you look on clackamusfire.com, there's an explanation of the differences of different types of burning you can do or cannot do, depending on where you live within our fire district boundaries, which encompass your area. And so really what you're speaking to is what we refer to as recreational fires. And so those recreational fires we recommend are no bigger in size than 3 by 3 by 3. So 3 feet wide, 3 feet high. And at any rate, also clean dried wood or briquettes. The caveat to that is that if anyone is experiencing homelessness and they need to be warm or they need to cook, then that is an exception to that rule. And so it also applies to people on a property that are doing just that. If they don't have the other means and they need to cook or warm themselves with a fire, then that is okay. But it needs to be of a clean dried wood or briquettes. It can't be just scraps of wood or yard debris, especially if your area is served by a garbage service that collects yard debris services or is serviced by that.
Thank you. That will make solstice a lot nicer, knowing that the fire is okay.
Mark, did I see your hand is up?
I think my question was answered just now about local burning.
Oh, great.
One thing though that I do, just as a clarification, if you do have an issue with a smoke problem or a fire problem that is a nuisance, that is more of a DEQ issue. And so the fire department has worked with the DEQ in trying to really re-educate the fact that if you're bothered by a smell, like a burning plastic or garbage smell, or the smoke itself is bothering you, even if it's just a normal wood burning stove, those are a DEQ issue. And really, we might call you if there is that kind of problem going on and say, you need to refer that to the DEQ. And really how that works is so many complaints will then issue a kind of an investigation and then some type of fine process to where it'll hopefully mitigate the issue.
All right, cool. Thanks for that information, Brian. We're glad to have you providing regular updates to us. It's great to have you here. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and I'll stick around if there's any other questions or things that I can answer. And I look forward to the next meeting as well.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to give a quick Luart update. So I'm going to share my screen. I don't have really slides to share here, but I just did want to talk about a couple of the reviews that we have some updates for recently. The last time I was with you and we spoke about Luart, there was a historic resource review on Linden Lane for some solar panels on an accessory building in the back of the house, and that was approved. Additionally, this morning, I received a notice that there is an approval for the Hill Road. This is the Faith on Hill Church that has been operating a school on weekdays. And I think it's a K-8 school on weekdays with about 100 students. And so that was outside of the compliance with their conditional use permit. So they needed to get that under review, and that was, like I said, that was approved today. They'll have to build a sidewalk along the frontage of Hill Road in front of the church. But other than that, they are good to go with that. And then the other thing here that I don't show here is that there was a hearing for the conditional use at the Concord School for the NCPRD, the Parks and Recreation District headquarters offices. And so the intention there is to use that building or a portion of that building for the offices for the Parks District. And that hearing was, I think, last week. And in any event, it hasn't been approved yet. The hearing was continued. They're still accepting testimony. But ultimately, the county has to follow its own rules. And so, the rules, as far as I know, say that, certain improvements are probably needed. And, I don't think that they'll be able to get around those requirements on the simple promise of building a library eventually. So, unfortunately, again, I don't have slides to share on that, but we will send out a follow-up email, and I will let you know the date of that upcoming hearing in case you want to submit comments. So with that, I think that we will do our ABC updates. And so, Rich, do you want to start us off with the start update?
Yes, I do. The CERT says that you have welcomed several new members to CERT from the Oak Grove neighborhood. They continue with their radio training and the installation of the GMRS repeater at Villa Rosa to enhance our emergency communications. A focus of our work this next year coming up will be Map Your Neighborhood, with the goal of helping our neighborhoods become more resilient in the face of disaster.
I think you're up next with the CPO Summit update, unless there's nothing there.
Nothing basic on the CPO summits. The basic discussions we're doing is getting neighborhood CPOs that are inactive to get their reports sent to us, whoever the nearest CPO is. It may affect us. There is a couple of CPOs that are near us that aren't active. The thinking behind this is that we may have a boundary to Oak Grove, but we're affected by our neighbors' developments as well. And if they're not able to respond because they're inactive, we'll at least get to review it and create a response if we want to. The other thing is that we're now getting email notices strictly by email, and they hope that we're going to get them in a faster manner and be able to have more time to respond to planning efforts that are we get notified by.
Cool, thanks for that, Rich. And yeah, we might participate in that neighboring CPO program. We'll just, I'm in talks right now with CCI, Committee for Community Involvement members, and planning division about how, how we might be able to handle that. So thanks for bringing that up, Rich. Valerie, is there an update from the EDC? Have you been doing EDC
Oh,
meeting lately?
I went to their last meeting in October and I hadn't made it for a couple of months, and so they decided to cancel them until January. No, so anyway, so yeah, next meeting in January.
Okay, great. Suzanne, do you have an update from HDOG?
Sure. Let's see. Three things. One is that HDOG just had the first annual winter gala just last Thursday. And actually it was not just HDOG, it was also in partnership with the Oak Grove United Baptist Church. And then, of course, Awakening. Awakening played a big part in providing food and drinks. And also too, Bobby Paredes, the owner of the building where Awakening is located, afforded lights, and Joe and Ann with Awakening had taken their time to hang the lights. So throughout the month of December and probably into the first part of January, our community can enjoy the night lights in the historic district, downtown district. Let's see, the church had provided means to donate cash to needy families in the North Clackamas School District. And so Ann and Joe put up, at Awakening, put up 2 giving trees where you will still be able to find those giving options. And I believe it's December 10th, so probably within the next 3 days. If you are interested, you can go into the shop, coffee shop, and then make a donation in time for the church to be able to make purchases for the various families in need during the holiday. Also, too, you can go online with the church and you'll find a list of items that you can buy. So if you didn't want to cash, you can certainly buy items that have been requested by these families and then give them that way. And then also at the gala, a tree, a live tree, meaning that the attendees at the gala formed the shape of a tree in the back lot behind Awakening. We had asked the attendees to bring a flashlight, and so once the tree was formed, the lights were lit, and then Bobby learned how to use her son's drone to take a photo of the tree. So you can go on our HDOG Facebook page or even Awakening Facebook page, and you'll see several photos, but one in particular of the tree that was formed by the community members that evening. So anyway, we hope to have our second winter gala next year as well. And I think, Rich, I think I saw you there, but I wasn't able to cross paths with you to talk with you, unless I'm making that up. Were you there last Thursday? No? Oh, I must have seen somebody that looked like you. But anyway, we only have advertised on social media this year. I don't know if we'll advertise next year with the practice review or putting signage up in the community, but certainly we had a good attendance. And then the second thing I'd like to speak to is the Trolley Trail Festival. Mark, do you want to chime in here and tell them a couple of things or 2 or 3 things that we decided at our first meeting a few weeks ago?
Sure, you could do that real quick. We've started our organization for next year's festival, which will be held on July 15th. The festival name has been changed just to the Oak Grove Festival, and the purpose of that was to focus more on the Oak Grove community rather than on the Trolley Trail, which actually runs through several jurisdictions. So that name has been changed, and so you guys will be hearing more about it. We're just getting ourselves organized a little early, so we have good participation from both vendors and government agencies next year.
Thank you, Mark. And we are so fortunate, so fortunate to have Mark again as our chair and then Eleanor as our vice chair as well. So, and then also Joe with Awakening is volunteering to serve as our treasurer this year. And then one last thing, next, or not next, but at the end of this month, on the 29th is the last HDOG meeting for the year. It is a board meeting, but you're all welcome to attend. And we are planning to brainstorm our 2023 ideas for projects and events. And if you'd like to attend, just go on to hdog.org under contact and then just zip off an email to me, and then I can make sure that you get the Zoom link that you will need in order to attend. That's it. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate the updates. Let's see. I believe Anita is not here, so we don't have an NCPRD update, although they are. Their board is meeting right now. And then Heidi had to leave early, so we don't have a water services update. As far as the pedestrian bikeway advisory committee, we had a meeting last night, and we are open for recruitments through the end of the month. Unfortunately, I don't have any other open recruitments to announce because the website is experiencing an error and not displaying any data. So I don't have anything to be able to share with you. But once we are able to find out what the open recruitments are, we'll try to get that into a follow-up email, just in case there's anything that might be of interest to anybody in serving. So the in addition, kind of tangentially related to the pedestrian bikeway advisory committee is the Walk Bike Clackamas project, which is the first update in 20 years to the bicycle and pedestrian plans for the county. And I am on that advisory committee, and our next meeting I think will be in late January or February. We did have an introductory meeting where we just got started, I think at the end of, actually, that was where I was instead of at this meeting in October because it conflicted with this meeting. So anyway, that project is just getting started, and when there are opportunities to participate, we'll make sure that we're sending out links to the surveys or other materials to take a look at, so that if you have any priorities in terms of walking or biking infrastructure in the community or anywhere in the county, or unincorporated county, I should say, but this is the project where we want to identify that. So certainly, if you can think of anything just off the top of your head, feel free to email me at joseph.edge@gmail.com, or the contact@oakgrovecpo.org email address will get to me as well. And I'd be happy to share your ideas with that group, with that planning team. So those are our ABC updates. for tonight, and now I'll open the floor for announcements. Valerie.
Okay, I just very quickly, the Heed, when he was here, talked about the homeless person's candlelight vigil that's done on the longest night, which is on December the 21st. And he did send a flyer that we're going to send out to you, but just in case it's helpful to people to kind of have an idea what that is, that will be on December 21st from 6 until 7 p.m. It will be outdoors at Liberty Plaza, which is at 815 Main Street in Oregon City. And those who attend will be invited to bring new warm socks or a winter coat to donate to our homeless neighbors. So we will send that flyer out so that you all have it, but I think it's helpful to know what that is if you're thinking that you might want to participate.
Thanks, Valerie. Tom?
Thanks, Joseph. The Oak Lodge Governance Project in November released a phase 1 final report on what we have accomplished so far. It talks about the research that we have gotten together and our efforts to talk with the people of Oak Lodge about those reports, that research. And it talks about the challenges that we face locally and the opportunities that we have for the future. You can access that report from our website, which is oaklodgegovernanceproject.org. And you'll have to click through a few pages to get to it, but that will also give you the opportunity to find some of those resources that we talked about, including several recordings of Zoom sessions with experts in various fields discussing issues that are related to local government and to the Oak Lodge area in particular. There's also an opportunity on the website to sign up for our email list, and that way you would get announcements of any events or new research that has been developed. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, Tom. Any other announcements from the floor? Okay, well then, let's see. I'll share my screen really quick so that we can show the upcoming meeting schedule. It'll advance. There. So our next meeting will be January 25th of next year, and then we'll have on February 22nd will be our board election. And March 22nd will be the first meeting with the newly formed board. And so, and then as far as our board meetings, there will be the last meeting of this board will be February 6th, and then the first meeting of the new board will be March 6th. So that's our meeting schedule upcoming, and that's all I've got for you tonight. Thanks, everybody. It was great to see everybody again. And Valerie, you can stop recording.